Yeah. All right, so we're ready. All right, for those of you who don't know, my name is Ann Alton. I'm the physical therapist here at Illinois Regional Pain Institute. I have a very simple mind, so I simple things up quite a bit. So for the sake of, sometimes I sacrifice a little bit of accuracy just for the global understanding of it. Just disclaimer. So this month, we're talking about how tissues heal. And something that I run across an awful lot throughout the course of treating patients is that a lot of people are under the impression that they can't get any better. They're stuck like this. And that's not exactly true. All of your tissues are in a constant state of renewal. Okay, your guts turn over every something like 4 or 5 days. I've got some actual numbers here. Your lungs turn over, depending on the type of tissue in the lungs, it turns over every 2 to 3 weeks, or a whole year, depending on the actual cell. Okay, so your body is in constant state of renewal. And I looked it up, you said you may have heard it said that you get a new body every 7 years. Okay, that's kind of what they're saying, is that within 7 years, pretty much all of your tissues have turned over at least once, okay, and repaired. You don't really have a brand new body, every 7 years, don't we wish? Don't we wish? Yes.
Is that every cell in the body?
Every cell,
every mitochondria?
Every living cell in the body will replace itself on its own time schedule, yeah. Now, there are some questions on whether or not the neural cells actually regenerate. We have said for a very long time that no, they don't. They have found stem cells in some areas of the brain now, and so they think that perhaps you can regenerate, but they don't know what kickstarts that regeneration process. And I'll tell a story a little bit later on about a woman who had a stroke, and it took about 10 years, but she considers herself fully recovered from a really bad stroke. So whether things reroute and things are able, whether or not they actually regenerate the cells, it's a question. I don't think we know. But I think that a lot of rehabilitation is possible because our bodies are constantly regenerating. And they're constant. Obviously, after you make a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, things tend to kind of degenerate a little bit, which is where a lot of the anti-aging stuff that we're hearing about now, where that's coming from. If we can, introduce stem cells, so we have a brand new original that we printed off the computer instead of making the copies, will that help extend our lives and extend the quality of life? So that's what we're talking about when we talk about regeneration. The body is constantly working on this SAID principle. It's specific adaptations to imposed demands. What that means is that what you do with your body today has a lot to do with how it regenerates in the future. Okay, so when you injure yourself, initially you don't move it very much, but then you start to use that arm a little bit more and a little bit more. And every time you do that, you're telling your body you need to be strong in this direction. Not necessarily this direction, but you need to be strong in this direction. So the body will lay down more cells or better cells in those directions to be stronger. Okay? Athletes use this principle all the time. If you lift more weight, the body will break down what was there, will put back more, cells that are capable of lifting more weight. So athletes do this all the time, and it's the same thing whether you're sick, whether you've been injured 10 years ago, or whether you're completely healthy and you're training for a marathon. The body repairs the same way. Okay, does that make some sense? All right. So the take home is what you did last week and last year, and even in the last 7 to 10 years, is what your body is like now. Okay, a lot of us have been not doing very much because we've been injured or we've had chronic pain for some reason, and so we can't get off the couch as much. We've seen our bodies deteriorate in the last however many years that we've been, we've seen this happen. Okay, before you lose heart, what you do today and what you start doing in the next week or so is going to help you to become healthier, okay? Okay, so no matter what body part is injured, it all kind of repairs in the same way. We have several things to consider. We have the goals, which the goals of your body is to remake the tissue as close to the original as possible. Okay, is it going to be the same as the original? No, it's always you're always gonna have a scar if you have a deep enough cut. Okay, so it's not going to be exactly, but your body really does try to repair it as close to the original as possible. The factors that your body takes into account when it's healing is blood flow and tissue requirements. The blood flow, there are some parts of your body that have its own direct blood flow. Things like your scalp. If you've ever cut yourself on your head, you know you bleed like a stuffed pig pretty much. You can't get it to stop. That's because you have a really good blood flow. Because the head and brain are really, really important areas of your body, need to repair faster. So they have their own blood flow. Areas that don't have their own blood flow are things like your discs, things like the joints in your knees. Those areas get nutrition from the tissues around it. Okay, so that takes a little bit longer. For example, how your joints get nutrition, the cartilage over top of your bone does not have its own blood supply. So when you put weight down through your knee or through your ankle, that puts a pressure on the cartilage and essentially kind of squishes out all the old bad material. And then when you take your weight off, it like sucks in all new good materials from the surrounding synovial fluid, which is the fluid that is in your joints. Okay, so you have this constant, when you're weight bearing or walking, you have this constant squishing on off, kind of a sponging action, and that's how the cartilage on your joints gets nutrition. And what happens when you have arthritis, for example, you have inflammation in that area. We'll talk about inflammation in a little bit, but you get inflammation in the area. That's your body's repair grooves. So it repairs the joint capsule and makes it thicker, which makes it harder to exchange the good fluid for new, or the bad old materials for the new good materials. And it also makes the joint capsule just a little smaller, so you don't quite get as good of a sponging action. Okay, this is where things like injections can help to increase the amount of space in the joint. Physical therapy, movement can help by loosening up those joint capsules and helping that nutrition. Okay.
So you might be getting this, but I'm just going to ask a quick
Sure.
question. If you don't, let's just use your knee. If you don't use it, it won't get nutrition in that area.
It doesn't get as good nutrition, and a lot of times you'll find that it starts to ache a lot more if you're not using it, which is, this is why the doctors say that this is your best way to get through arthritis pain, is to get up and move, because you're circulating that nutrition, and if you, it's hard. It is hard, and we'll talk a little bit about what we can do to kind of mitigate some of that. But if you've been sitting on a pew or a really hard chair or something, when your body starts to lose blood flow to a certain area, it hurts. So you shift, okay? And that's kind of what your joints are. It hurts in a little different way. But like I said, it is hard to get moving, especially when you're.
It's hard, but it's the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
It is. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can gauge how much activity you should do, because obviously.
That's what I need. Yeah.
Obviously.
I've been on the couch for a couple of years, and
Right.
finally decided that wasn't working, and I didn't care what happened.
Mhm.
Pain-wise, I was getting my off that couch.
Uh-huh.
So here's where I'm at. That's
Right.
where I'm at.
Very good.
You're in a good place.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Well, yeah, totally bizarre, but I
Best place.
walked right into your notice and then I was like,
Awesome.
oh, that's just what I was thinking.
Exactly.
So yeah, that
Great.
blue flyer out there.
Awesome.
And
That's
the elevator. I was like, oh, that's
great. Good to know. Good to know. So the other thing is the tissue requirements.
No, I'm gonna clear ejaculate.
You should have been in your Monday.
I have
Oh.
two hot pads.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Trying to keep
Smart
the-
girl.
Well,
Trying to keep the
I knew
blood
I
flow.
I knew I wouldn't be very comfortable sitting up, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Alrighty, so the other thing is the tissue requirements. How much does this tissue need to move? So your back, for example, will often, especially like the discs in your back, will heal slower because they're constantly moving. Okay, you have to be able to move those. It's just like getting a cut on your knuckle. You know how long that takes to actually heal that. You know, every time you move it, you break it open again. Right? So every time you move it, you break it open again. The good news is that once it finally does heal, it's completely movable, and it's much more like the old tissue than if you hadn't moved it at all and it healed right away. Then you would be stiff. Okay. Same thing goes for your back. All right. So also just backing up a little bit, blood needs to carry the oxygen, the sugar, and other nutrients, building materials to work. And that's why blood flow is important. Almost forgot a really key piece there. Alrighty, so just, kind of remember the SAID principle. If you are expecting a body part to heal and and be movable, you need to move it as it's healing, okay?
So what's SAID stand for?
SAID stands for the specific adaptations to impose demands, and it's on page 1.
Oh, okay. Missed that.
Okay. And that's just, again, the athletes use it, all of our tissues use that. It's, if you don't move something that's scarred down, it's going to be really stiff and not movable, right? Okay, and so healing time. How many people have been told that their injury is healed and there's nothing else they can do?
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of us, okay? That's sort of true and sort of not, okay? There's a nuance there that I want to explain. The initial healing period of any acute injury is going to be about 6 to 8 weeks, okay? That 6 to 8 weeks, they expect for the majority of the healing process to happen. And we'll talk a little bit about how that construction zone works, but basically, they're expecting for the basic scaffolding to be set down. They're expecting for, that to be, replaced by some better building materials, and for it to be basically functional again after about 6 to 8 weeks. And super minor injuries, you see this happen a lot. When you cut your finger, it even maybe takes a little less time than that. But if you watch it, 3-4 weeks down the road, you notice it's pretty well healed over and it's usable again. I cook on Sundays, and invariably at the end of it, I'm so tired of like slicing my own finger. No, nobody else eats my food. But anyway, so I'm pointing at my finger.
You know what I learned? I learned this from watching people on TV. You don't put your finger out there, you put it like this, and then you're cutting.
Yeah, and then I cut my
You
I
cut my knuckle.
I cut my knuckles. I cut every, So I just have to be very
really
careful.
bad ones doing that, and it's less bad if you got a whole bone.
Good to know. I will try it, but I think.
Yeah, there's no guarantees.
I think it's just slow down.
Yeah. Pretty much.
It is funny.
So
That's
but
me doing it slow.
the basics of the healing process are finished after about 6 to 8 weeks. Okay. If you have a situation where you have chronic pain, a lot of times you have a situation where you may have healed, but your tissues aren't very healthy. Okay, so if you had that back injury 10 years ago, supposedly all of the major issues are done. The tissues are done healing, but if you've been on the couch for 2 years, you're not. Or 10 years, or however long it's been, those tissues aren't healthy and they're not strong, okay? So the risk of re-injury is maybe a little higher, okay? But since your body's always remodeling and it's always regenerating, you can always get healthier, okay? I definitely can attest to this in that I feel at 44, 10 years younger than I felt at 34. Okay. So a lot of that has been a lot of hard work in getting myself more fit and eating better and
So your diet and exercise.
treating my body better has helped it become a lot healthier. And so I weather flare-ups a whole lot better now than I used to 10 years ago when I couldn't, when I was, you'd get up, you'd take a shower, you'd go take a nap because the shower wore you out, right? So, it definitely, it can be done. You can be healthier, okay? Is the pain going to necessarily go away? Maybe not, but if you're more fit, you have a better quality of life because you're able to do more.
Yeah, I think the pain will minimize.
I agree.
It does for me, or has.
Yeah. Good.
I work with her in physical therapy. We've made some dramatic changes in the last month.
Yes. Yeah, you did. He's turned a corner, and it's really kind of fun to watch.
I can tell. He's like, I can tell.
Hairpin curve there, 180. It's been fun to watch. But yeah, I think the pain eventually does minimize.
Yeah.
So
You just can't give up. It's a long road, mine was. But
It's a way of life. You have to
it
change
is.
your whole thing.
It's a way of life.
yeah.
You gotta change everything.
And months after months might not seem like you're getting any better, but you have to, like shoe teachers, go back 3 or 4 months and see where you were then, where you are now. A little bit, when you get chronic pain, a little bit goes a long, long way.
Yeah.
A long way.
So yeah, you can look at those textbook healing times, but there's this wonderful book called My Stroke of Insight, and I am blanking on the author's name right now. Jill Bolt Taylor, something like that. Anyway, she also has a TED Talk that's really fun to watch. But she had a stroke, and this woman had she was a neuro, and I can't say this word, anatomist.
Okay.
Where she looked at the neurology of the brain and the different areas of the brain that were responsible for doing different things. Anyway, she had a stroke, and so a good portion of the book is her talking about, I know what part of my brain is not working now. And it's really kind of cool to read how she figured out how she was going to call for help. Based on the fact that her whole speech center and her language centers were being impacted. How did she call for help? And so, anyway, she was told after she basically woke up from the stroke, she was told that 6 months and you'll have all the healing that you could possibly, that's it, that's all.
I've heard that.
Yeah, and you know what? The biggest chunk of your healing, yes, is done in that first 6 months, and you will typically see a pretty big healing, a lot done in that first 6 months. But it is not true. Okay, we have in the last 10 or 15 years learned a lot more about how the brain works and how strokes work and how to rehab them, and a lot of this hasn't trickled down yet to a lot of the doctors that are out there. But we know, for example, that if you have a stroke and you cannot use your left side, if you pin down the right side and force yourself to use it, takes a lot of really intensive therapy, and you probably shouldn't do it without a therapist right there. And we're talking 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. But you can teach somebody who has been paralyzed for 40 years how to use that other side.
You're retraining the brain.
You're retraining the brain.
I do not see in the community with doctors I have been to, they do not have the art. They may have the knowledge, but they really don't have the art.
I concur.
And I'm going to qualify that with a little in that the climate that the doctors are practicing in right now, they have about 8 minutes, and it's really hard to do any healing in 8 minutes.
Here it's 8 minutes.
Well, just in general, as far
I haven't
as
had
far
that
as
experience.
with not with me.
No.
I'm talking with in general with most doctors that are in this area with any of the United States, because of insurance and all of that, they have to stack their schedule so tightly that it's just they have, you have like 8-10 minutes to figure out what's going on with somebody.
Experienced that, but even with more time, there's still no solutions.
You're right.
I've had
You're
no
right.
problem. I've not been pushed out of the office. I'm given at least 30, 45 minutes.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And
I'm
yet
glad.
they still don't hear you, is the thing. They still don't
Well,
hear you.
Or we don't know, or
They
we
don't
don't know
know.
what to
They
do.
don't know.
I mean, a lot of times, I think a lot of times we don't have an answer, and it's hard for anybody to say when they're supposedly the expert, and people are looking at you like you're help, and I don't know the answer, and I think that a lot of times it's very uncomfortable for a lot of people to say I don't know the answer. One of the things that
I don't think
have the
that's
luxury.
it at all. I think some people think they know exactly what they're doing.
Okay,
and they
there is
think
that group. There is that group
that's
of
the
people.
problem.
There
It's
is that
not
group.
the ones you're talking about. It's the ones who think they know exactly
I
what they're
will
doing.
try to, if after class, I will try to steer people to doctors that I know are going to pay attention. Here's the thing. I have a luxury here in therapy. I'm going to see you once or twice a week. I have the luxury to say, gosh, you know what, I really don't know what's going on with this, but if you help me by paying attention to what's going on with your body, and maybe we can suss it out together, or at least figure out what it is that your body needs. And so when I'm seeing you that frequently for that length of time, I think I have a luxury that some other folks don't have.
Don't be afraid to say what's going on, because everything you tell
Yeah,
her.
if I make you worse, tell me, please,
If
because
your toes hurt and you got a broken neck, or your feet, tell her, because it can be, other things can lead to the real.
She's open, and a lot of doctors are
This
not
really doesn't need to be the
open.
Anna show.
A lot of doctors are not open to that. They don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And they just, once you say something, they just exit out like,
Yeah.
I think when you see 35 patients a day,
Yeah.
it's very hard.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
on that kind of 30 to 35, and it's a huge pace, I think.
Yeah.
And then you've got.
Notice I see 10 or 11.
But they're
Just a
dealing
lot.
with so many different situations and disease states that some need follow-up, some don't. I mean, it's very
and you're
different.
fixing people, that's why you don't have the caseload.
Yeah.
Well, I
Getting out there is
can't though. I mean, if I don't have room for people, I don't have room for people. So
Can we
people
clone
wait.
you?
Huh?
Can we clone you?
That would be scary. I don't know that there could be more than one of me in the world.
Can you tell us the name of the lady who wrote the book again?
I think
Or the
it's
name of the
Jill
book?
Bolt Taylor, I believe.
Jill Bolt Taylor?
Bolte, I think.
Taylor.
My Stroke of Insight is the name of the book, and it's a fabulous TED Talk. It's a fabulous book. It's just really interesting.
Thank you.
But she 10 years down the line finally said, okay, now I'm better. Maybe her life wasn't exactly the way it was before, but I think
Yeah, I
injuries.
think you're right. It's BOLTE Taylor.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. Thank you for double checking that.
Sorry, I was like, I thought I'd
Gotta
Google
know.
that since you weren't sure.
So anyway, she was, 10 years down the line, she has finally said, okay, now I feel like I have rehabilitated from this. And it was a process of her refusing to give up and refusing to accept, but that's with the brain. Now we've been told, gosh, you have a stroke, that's it. There is nothing you can do. Or at least that's how I was raised. I was surprised even in the last 10 or 15 years that, you have a stroke and you can survive it because they have medication now that they can get if you get to the hospital soon enough. And that to me was a whole paradigm shift in and of itself when I went back to school and learned that. And it was like, wow, because I thought, stroke, you're dead, I know you can do
That's
things.
how it was back in the 70s.
That's how it was.
Stroke basically.
Yeah, and what you were left
By the
with was
plot.
what you were left with, and
Yeah.
we're learning that is just really not true. So, don't underestimate the body's ability to heal. Okay.
And I don't think a lot of people know that the body regenerates, so I didn't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I got a lot of that in my.
That was good news for me.
Is that including the cartilage? The cartilage regenerates too?
It can, yes. Yes.
Is there like, which vitamins and stuff? Is there?
Oh boy.
Or is there? I don't want to send you off on a rabbit trail.
No, you know, a lot of doctors will recommend the glucosamine, chondroitin, ASU combination.
Regular vitamins.
Fish oils and
Go to a vitamin shop and then tell them, and they'll lead you where you need to be.
Okay.
okay. All right. So getting to how healing actually works. Okay. I think of this as like a construction zone on the highway. Okay. This is how my brain puts these things together. Okay. Some areas are routine maintenance. Okay. And if you don't slow down enough for the routine maintenance to take place, that routine maintenance won't really occur, or they'll do a sloppy job. Okay. Others are more major repairs. You know, if you think about, you know, okay, so here's my metaphor. This is not just construction site on the highway. This is a construction site because you had a really, really terrible wreck, and we had a tanker go off the bridge and set fire, and so now the bridge is burned and everything is okay. Okay. So initially when this happens, you have 911 called, right? So this 911 is your initial swelling that happens. Okay, these are the first responders. So you have your white blood cells that come. Okay, this is another really good book. I'm trying to get. It's not cheap. It's called Explain Pain. Okay, but it has a lot of stuff about healing and how the healing process works. The guys that wrote this, Lorimer Mosley and David Butler, they're physical therapists from Australia, and I'm totally their biggest fangirl because they're just awesome. They've done a lot in terms of educating the public on pain and how it works and how the body works. So basically, the process, it releases white blood cells, delivers other cells that kind of mop up the initial area, take away the tanker, you know, that kind of thing. Get the injured people out and get them to the hospital and that sort of thing. These can also help scabs form, so they'll put up, you know, the areas where, you know, if there's a structural damage, they'll put up, you know, detour signs and that sort of thing so that you can get through the area safely again after the accident's been cleaned up. Okay, so the acids in your tissues, if, for example, if you sit for a really long time, you know, you get the sore buttock and you have to shift. Okay, those are that's a buildup of acid in your tissues, letting you know that, okay, I'm losing blood flow here. I'm not able to carry away the acids from your tissues. That sets the nerves in that area off and sends the information to your brain, and the brain says, oh, I gotta move. Okay? Sometimes you may be consciously aware of that, sometimes not. If you watch a little kid in school, you know that it's not completely cognitive what's happening here. They're just shifting. Okay? And you probably have experienced that when you're in a lot of pain. You know, people are like, are you okay? You're shifting a lot, or you're moving a lot. Yeah. And that's your brain just automatically trying to get you to move so that you get more blood flow to an area that happens to be, you know, a little bit restricted. Okay?
Is that lactic acid? Is that
Some of it, yes. Yes. That can be a good portion of it.
So if we avoid to drink acid food or eat acid food, would this increase the pain? No.
No. Although a thing about eating acids, I mean, there's a whole fad now. I don't know if fad is the right word, but there's a whole thing now about low acid diet,
high alkaline?
a high alkaline diet, and I think that has more to do with the GI system than
Cancer.
and inflammation. When your things get through the GI system into your bloodstream, acids can inflame and cause a global inflammation, but not necessarily.
That's a different kind of acid. Lactic acid, I think, is a byproduct of glucose metabolism.
It is.
So that's anything you eat is a byproduct of making energy. Is lactic acid is one of the things.
Yes.
So it's totally different than an acid food.
Right.
Did you introduce yourself?
No, I don't want to. I'm not.
This is a dietitian.
I know a little tiny bit because I'm pretty much retired. That's all.
Lots, yeah. I mean,
We have several professionals in here today.
Yes.
I like that. I like that.
Registered nurse.
I like that.
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
like that.
Yep.
I know. Just
So you
enough
can-
to be dangerous.
That's what I tell doctors all the time. I'm like, look, I'm going to ask some questions that are probably going to make you mad because I know just enough to be dangerous, and so I have to ask you these things because that's the gap in my knowledge. That calms them down usually. Not all the time. Anyway, okay, so basically the acids can also build up, and lactic acid can also build up after working hard. A lot of times we can call this muscle soreness. Again, the prescription is blood flow. Okay, so we have to, these are byproducts, so we need to get the blood flowing so that we can move the waste products out of those tissues and, through the kidneys and liver to filter. Okay. A lot of times we associate one sort of acid buildup and, after working hard as feeling good pain. We're sore.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And then some others as being bad pain. It hurts. Okay. And I think that a lot of times they may be even similar, but because the situation around it is so different, the brain is interpreting it as a totally different type of danger.
I think you're right. I think
Okay.
there's a line between good pain and you've done just too much.
Yes.
And it's a weird, I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. And it's invisible. You don't
It
know
is.
until you cross
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's exactly, you don't know.
You don't know, and it's a
until you
moving
know.
target. It's a moving target,
Yeah,
so you don't
that's
even
true.
know that.
That's true. That's
So what was okay yesterday may not be okay today.
I've wondered about that. So,
Yeah. Okay, so inflammation. I kind of in my brain call this the construction. This is the redness, the swelling, the heat, the pain that's associated with injuries and infections. And these are typically the acute ones. However, inflammation can also happen within very localized areas, create extra pain, and not necessarily look swollen on the outside, including the nerve sheaths. The sheaths themselves can get swollen, and so that can create pain in of itself because that tends to squish the nerve, and nerves don't like to be squished too long and too hard, and they don't care for some of the chemicals that are within the inflammatory soup, the inflammation. Okay. All right. So the redness. This is your increased blood flow. This is good. We want this. Swelling. I consider this to be like the congestion caused by all the repair crews, all the good materials coming into the construction zone, and all the bad, ugly waste materials leaving the construction zone. Plus the people who are trying to get to work through the construction zone. So if you have a hip that's going, you still have to get stuff down to your toes, right? So blood still has to go through that area. Heat will be the increased metabolism in the area, the hot, sweaty workers, the machines, the extra work that's getting done in the area. Pain, this is what I think of as the flaggers, okay? This is telling you, slow down, not too much too soon, okay? This is our body's own way of kind of, putting the brakes a little bit on how much activity that we do, okay? The hard part is knowing when it's okay, kind of push that a little bit, and when you need to back off, right? I mean, that's the really, really hard part. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Anybody got any questions so far on what I kind of talked about?
If you have a pain and let's say it's in your knee and it's rejuvenating over 6 months, and you're doing exercises and supposedly you think it's going to get better, and it doesn't get better.
Yeah, why is that?
Why is that?
That's a good question. You know what? I don't think we don't know. Is the short answer to that question. The long answer is the theories that we have right now indicate that means that there's some sort of neural system involvement.
Is that coming from the brain and spinal cord?
It can. Typically, there's a central sensitization with the brain and the spinal cord, and then there's a peripheral sensitization. When you look at peripheral sensitization, my metaphor for that is that you have your house broke into. Okay, you're going to probably call in some repair crews, have the house repaired, and maybe put in different locks. Okay, maybe an extra lock or two. Okay, that's the peripheral sensitization. The body is putting in a couple of extra sensors in that area so that you can be more aware of what's happening. Okay, if you get broken into again and again and again, we're going to start putting in more and more alarm systems. We're going to buy the dog that barks at shadows. We're going to put up, we're going to put up the motion sensor lights at the periphery of the neighbors are now going to get worried.
Can you tell the difference?
Huh?
Can you tell the difference?
Between peripheral sensitization?
Well, when somebody sees you and you're working with them.
Yes, I will say that, yes, there are ways to tell the difference between the sensitization out here and the sensitization that happens within the brain.
Good.
That's the CEO that's worried about that one department that keeps having problems.
Yeah.
That's the central sensitization. That's when it gets in the changes that occur in the brain. Now, there are ways to tell the difference. I will tell you that, honestly, 9 times out of 10, probably 99 times out of 100, I've seen both. Because your body's not stupid.
I understand, but it sounds like you can differentiate.
Yes.
And that's what you're saying about her.
Yeah. I've never heard somebody say that before, and actually back up.
So what can be holding back healing? Okay, as far as the healing process, there can be lack of anything that your tissues need to heal. So poor nutrition comes into effect this way. Okay, so if you're not getting the proteins that are the building blocks for most cells, if you're not getting the lipids that are the building blocks for most cells, if you're not getting vitamin D that you need, because that is, again, another major building block for hormones and cells and all kinds of stuff in your body. If you're not getting the oxygen, as much as I hate to jump on this bandwagon, because everybody knows why they need to quit smoking, okay? But smokers have higher pain. Why? Because your carbon monoxide hijacks the vehicle that oxygen uses to go around your body. You have less oxygen to your nerves. You have restricts the blood flow to those nerves. It restricts the oxygen usage for those nerves.
Blood carries oxygen.
And you
to make you feel
can't,
better.
you can't, so those nerves are already on high alert. So smokers have a tendency to have higher pain. So there's another reason to quit. I still maintain you won't quit until you know exactly why you smoke. But anyway, so
A lot of people know why they smoke. It's just,
Well, for me, it was for a long time. It was the only thing that I could do that I enjoyed doing.
There you go.
Because
There you go.
I was on the couch.
Well, it's a smooth.
That's
muscle
my brother.
relaxer.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
That's
you
true,
feel
too.
more relaxed.
Yeah.
Initially, but then of course it has all the toxins.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's kind of probably everybody who smokes, really. I mean, that's relaxes them, stimulates them when they need to be, relaxes them.
But it's also could be peer group pressure. When I was young, I mean, everybody I knew smoked. Everybody smoked, so I smoked, but I didn't like it. So but I did smoke for quite a while.
I tried to smoke once.
Yeah, figure that brain theology
I couldn't
out,
remember
right?
my cigarettes. I couldn't. You have to keep all this stuff on you, and I just couldn't remember any of it. And I smoked 2 and gave the pack
Too
away.
ADD.
That wasn't even a pack I bought. I found it somewhere, and I'm like, this
That
is
is
just
smart.
too much work.
Smart girl.
I couldn't.
Okay. So the second thing that might be holding people back is a misunderstanding of your flagger's instructions. So a misunderstanding of I'm in pain, so therefore I shouldn't move at all, or I'm in pain, but I'm going to move anyway. Okay. This
How do you
is
know when to override that? That's the thing, I think. How do you know when to override your?
So there's
try to
two
override it.
there's two things. Number one, obviously you're not going, if you're already in pain, and you get up off the couch, you're going to have some pain when you start to move again. The way I look at it is, if you're hurting the next day, you probably overdid it. Okay, you need to back off.
How common is it to hurt 2 days later?
Very.
Oh, good.
Very
Okay.
common, because
Very.
that seems to be what happens to me. I'll feel good the next day, and I'll think, oh, I can do it again. But then the following day, I'm done.
Right.
I'm done.
Yeah, that is a typical delayed response
Yeah.
with chronic pain that you get, and that's mostly due to inflammation in the nervous system
Central
itself.
nervous system or peripheral nervous?
I've
Some
noticed
of
that
both.
Okay.
with all my car accidents, it's not the day after, it's the 2 days after.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah,
That really
typically.
nails
And if
you.
you notice, when you're the older you get, the delayed onset muscle soreness that people talk about after a good workout, that tends to be delayed another day or two as well in older people. So that's fairly typical. So the goal for getting off the couch is going to be, okay, what can I do now, every day, that I know won't flare me up? And you sit down and you look at your daily stuff, and you say, okay, can I walk 2 minutes? Can I walk 15 minutes? I can't walk 15 minutes, but I can maybe I can do 10. So you try to do 10 minutes of walking every day. If that flares you up, back it off. Okay.
I started with 5.
I started with less than that.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple weeks, and then went to 10, and now I'm up to 15 or 20.
Yeah. So you have to start silly slow. The story that everybody's heard, if you've been here before or seen the YouTube stuff, is that, I used to go to Forest Park Nature Center, park my car, walk up to the Nature Center, turn around, walk back.
Oh my
That was it.
gosh.
That was my walk. And I would do that, and of course I felt really stupid because, the people inside are going, oh, that's a crazy lady, she forgot something.
She forgot something.
She's
forgotten something.
And then I would go around to the back of the, and then I would go maybe a few 10 yards down the trail and then back. And it was, I would stop as soon as I felt like I was about halfway to where, to make sure that I can get back to the car.
But you also put yourself in a setting that
Yes.
encouraged you to come back.
I love hiking.
Yeah.
I love being outdoors,
Yeah.
and I love hiking, and so that was one of the things. I have found that you will not exercise if you don't find something you enjoy doing that requires you to be in shape. Okay?
That's right.
You're not going to go to the gym, unless you really just like going to the gym, but you're not going to go to the gym 3 days, 4 days a week if you don't have something you're training for. Okay? And if it's just being able to go to the cookout for your family reunion, then but you still have to train for that. Okay? If you've not been doing anything at all, you still have to train for anything. Okay? So we all know what a flare-up is. Okay? The flare-up is where you're hurting for 2 or 3 days. Can't do much of anything. Okay? We want to try to fly under that radar. Of that line, that invisible line that moves. But what you try to do, so you try to find something that is kind of hard but doable on a bad day, and something that is easy to do on a good day. And the hard part is holding you back on the good days because you want to do more. But you're going to do the same amount every day until you can do it's easier on a bad day. You can bump it up a little bit. That make
You talk
some
about
sense.
regret and reward along that line. You do too much, you regret it.
Oh yeah.
So you want to make it a reward.
Yes,
And baby steps.
and baby steps.
You gotta have baby steps. Doing too much.
Doing too much, yeah.
days
So
later.
regretting things later on. We've all done it. So don't beat yourself up. Okay. So basically, the worst that can happen is your body says, "Oh, we need to be this much stronger. So they hurry up and they bring a new repair crew and, you know, tear the old things down and put the old new ones up, and you're just a little bit stronger, okay? And then that's kind of what the healing happens in stages. You have the basics laid down, and, you know, so you get the scab that's laid down and the basic scaffolding whenever you have an injury, and then, you know, as things go on, you use the injured area a little bit more. The body says, oh, we have to be stronger in this direction, so they lay more fibers down in one direction than another. You know, you use it again, you know, more, and so it happens in stages. And I will tell people that healing is like, should look like a good performing stock. Okay, you should, you know, start off down here, and you're going to come up, and you're going to have a bad day. Okay, you're going to go up a little bit, so the trend should be up. But you're not necessarily day to day going to be always going in an upward direction. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to have bad days. The other analogy for that is like springtime in Illinois. Okay. We're aiming towards warmer weather, but you're still going to have that 33 and rainy in April, right? Okay. So you have that kind of. It's not a smooth process. Okay. Okay.
Plateaus.
Huh?
Plateaus.
Yeah, and plateaus. You're going to have whole sections of time where your body's like, okay, that's enough. We've had enough construction in this zone for a while. We're gonna give you a break, and we're gonna let you cross the river without running into a construction zone. All right. The last thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of what might be holding you back is the belief that you cannot heal. And this is not something that you can just go, oh, well, Ann said I can heal, so
I did that.
you know.
It worked
It
for
took me a little time to convince you, though, too. Okay, so this is not your conscious belief. This is a whole host of things that you've been told growing up. This is a whole host of misunderstandings about how the body works and how it heals, and this is a whole series of this. It's not the only part of whether or not something's going to get better. Okay. Certainly, you know, if you have a bone that has healed and it's crooked, you know, you're always going to have that bended forearm if you have that the bone that didn't heal right. Okay. So there's obviously other things that happen. If you have structural damage, there's going to be structural issues that your body has to compensate for. However, you know, there was this, and I wish I knew what country this was that did this study with the knee surgery. If you've read ahead, there's a study that was done where half the people that were supposed to have knee surgery just had them knocked out, and and openings made, and instruments kind of moved around in there a little bit. And the other half actually had the scope surgery done where they cleaned up everything and they removed all the little extra flaps of cartilage and whatnot that were, they cleaned it up. Okay, both groups did equally well. It wasn't the United States that did this program.
We need a psychiatrist.
It was like Poland.
Wasn't it?
I know, I'm serious.
It wasn't
like
like
Russia. Is
I'm thinking it was Australia, but I'm not sure. But I need to go back and relook. Because I remember looking at this study going, well, that wasn't done here in the States, because there's no way the Human Rights Board would ever allow you to do that.
Do they not have lawyers in Australia?
Right.
What happened?
Anyway, so this is unconscious, and basically the way I ask that people kind of look at this is, number one, there are ways to retrain the brain. Okay, and there are, as far as the central sensitization, where we go look at the spinal cord and the brain, the changes that happen with chronic pain. There are things that you can do that don't necessarily require a psychiatrist. that I've actually, we've done classes on it before, and we can do it again if people are interested. But there's ways that you can retrain that brain. But the other is just to learn as much as you can about your condition. Learn as much as you can about how pain works, because the more you learn, the less scary it is, the more, the suffering at least, I mean, even if your pain doesn't go away, the suffering that goes with, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me, and I must have cancer, or I must, there must be something dreadfully wrong with me if I can't get this pain to go away. Those kinds of things, if you understand kind of what's happening with your illness or with your body, that can really help you to become healthier in the long run as well, because you have your better understanding of your limitations as well. Okay. Wow. Any questions?
Well, no, just not everything works for everybody, and everybody has a different healing time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there are, you can't question, why, I've had people say, I had a knee replacement same time as this other guy. Why is he up and walking around? Well, he
Genetics.
There's
Yeah.
genetics. Does he have diabetes? Does he have,
Smoke.
does he smoke? Does he,
Way of life, genetics.
all of that stuff was how in shape was he before the surgery, and how what's he doing for rehab? It just all of it. And so not one thing is gonna be the right thing for every single person, but we do know a whole lot more about what pain is. It's not just damage, fixed damage, pain goes away. Okay, there's so many more pieces that go into it, and the more pieces that we can impact, the less the overall pain picture is. That makes sense. So, and if one thing doesn't work for you, good news. There are so many. It's so complex. There's other ways that we can try to impact it.
Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Works
Right.
for me.
Yeah.